Internet, I'm Hugo.
And I'm an oddly haired gay man from the 90s.
And this is Unpopular Culture. And today we have more Doctor Who Series 11 news. The first bit of villain casting news has actually come out. We haven't gotten a lot of info. The BBC's actually been pretty tight-lipped so far this year about all the new stuff. But Alan Cumming himself has come out in an interview and just been like, hey, guess what? I'm in the new Doctor Who season. Alan Cumming, if you guys don't remember, is
the oddly haired gay guy from the 90s.
He was also Floop in Spy Kids. He was
oddly haired gay guy in Spy Kids.
He was weird guy in Cabaret.
With odd hair?
Yeah. He sang the threesome song in Cabaret. Is
that a musical?
Yeah, Cabaret. He's done a lot of musical theater. He does a lot of stuff. Anyway, Alan Cumming is apparently playing King James the First. In this year's Doctor Who. And on top of that, he's given a little info on what his episode's about, which I find interesting. Would you like to hear about it, Jake?
Boy, would I.
Okay. His episode is apparently going to be about witch hunts. It's going to be about, which is hilarious to me, because the worst place for the first female doctor to show up in history would be during a witch hunt. Yeah. The doctor's actually, in canon, by the way, Merlin. Which we've never seen, although it can't be her, because Merlin is a
Her in a long beard playing Merlin as Doctor Who canon would make my day. In canon,
because there's actually a short story, the thing that made it canon was there's a short story written from the perspective of that doctor, but it's never... There are some Doctor... There are Doctor Who stories...
That's smart.
There are some Doctor Who stories, especially during the period between the old series getting canceled,
where they don't number them and they don't have any description. And...
That one they actually did have a description, and it was he was a redhead. So whenever the Doctor becomes a redhead is when he becomes Merlin, which is by some in canon been like that's why he wants to be a redhead.
What if she dyes her hair red?
Whatever.
Maybe that's why he wants to be redhead, is because he knows Merlin's coming up?
The period of time would make no sense. But anyway, considering Alan Cumming is playing King Henry I, and he didn't say...
Was King Henry gay?
No, not to my knowledge.
Because I think it'd be funny if they were making a little bit of a on-the-nose... we cast Alan Cumming, because of course we... By the way, Alan Cumming is a genuinely good actor.
He said he's playing a foppish villain, though, so he's going to be playing it very...
Yeah, I like that. Alan Cumming's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He looks... just the idea of him, I would like to have Alan Cumming as a recurring role as random aliens.
He actually said he might be returning also, which is a weird thing.
Imagine a storyline that with a arcing plot that had Alan Cumming, and then it bookends with Alan Cumming for some reason.
In fairness, in a lot of Doctor Who seasons and stuff, they've had times where they have in the season finale, for instance.
Oh yeah, like when he bails Amy out of the Demon's Run.
Right, and they'll show a lot of characters from earlier in the season, so maybe...
That's when Jenny, Vostra, and Strax were introduced.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
That's so odd.
Doesn't it feel like Jenny, Vostra, and Strax are supposed to be a thing that you know from earlier, but they're not?
It feels pretty... fine though, it never took me out. I was just like, oh, I kind of like these characters. Okay, we're never gonna see them again. And then we saw them again and again.
Jack Harkness was supposed to be in that episode too, as one of the people.
What a bummer!
He was busy, I guess, during that.
With Arrow or
no,
Arrow wasn't on. What the fuck? What the fuck was he doing?
I don't know. Not that.
Aw, I would have creamed a bit.
Yeah, but I'm curious because we mentioned in one of our previous episodes, also during the season, there's apparently going to be a Rosa Parks episode, and we're talking about how it'd be kind of a weird and maybe a little bit distasteful if in the Rosa Parks episode there's like an alien threat. Yeah. You know what I mean? So we were talking about maybe that'll be a historical episode, which they haven't done historicals in a long time. And for those of you who don't watch Doctor Who a ton or know the terminology, a historical is a Doctor Who episode that takes place in the past and the villains are human with no sort of sci-fi.
We haven't had one of those, and the closest I could get to it was... now I can't remember what it was called. The one where it's just the Doctor, and it's technically a historical on himself. With Clara. The one where there's no monster.
Oh, listen. By definition, it has to have no sci-fi elements outside of the TARDIS and the Doctor himself, and that one does go to the future, so that one technically doesn't count. Right. Anyway, and people will argue that there was a monster, and listen, you're wrong. because that makes a less interesting story. Fuck you.
Yeah, it does make a less interesting story. Although I think Moffat would make a less interesting story.
Yeah.
I don't think there's.
I choose to believe what I choose to believe.
I don't think there's evidence for a monster anyway. So.
Anyway, so in this episode, I'm wondering if he's gonna just be King Henry and legitimately there won't be an alien threat in this one. Again, I think it's more interesting because we've had so much of the formula of Doctor Who for so long. Always, you land in a period, whether it's the future or the past, you find a problem, you discover the problem is an alien or something secretly. Yep. I think it's more fun if they start switching it up, and sometimes the Doctor lands and him and his companions, her and her companions, are screwed over just by circumstance. They landed in the wrong place, wrong time, whoops, let's solve this problem. I think that's a good way to break up the monotony of the show that I think is kind of set in over the Moffat period.
I think Moffat banked too much on Monster of the Week, which can be fun, but again, he ran out of ideas a lot.
Russell T Davies had a lot of stories about family, and the themes of those series were about family. And Chibnall has been saying a lot of... Was there
one... Maybe Martha wasn't about family, but...
No, because even that, her sister appeared in some of the episodes, and she dealt with her parents in the finale. So I'm thinking, especially with this bigger TARDIS team, Chibnall has said, and I believe he did his first Doctor Who Magazine monthly interview, because the current showrunner always does a monthly sort of Q&A, which Moffat has, of course, been doing for the past 4 or 5 years, but Chibnall took over this month, and he just, instead of doing a Q&A, because there's not a lot of Q's yet to A about the show, he sort of did an overview of just what the show was meant to him, and like everything, and a lot of that seemed to involve family and stuff, so I'm assuming with this bigger TARDIS team, we're going to be seeing that sort of dynamic with they're sort of a family unit, and they get into problems, which is very classic Who.
I like that a lot.
If you've ever seen it. Especially First Doctor stuff was very, we land in a time period, and we have to deal with, you know, being stuck here. Cave people in the case of the first story, or, you know, in the Mayans, the TARDIS, like, gets trapped behind a door they just can't get behind, and they're like, oh no, we have to pretend to be Mayan gods. Oops. So, stuff like that's fun, but...
Yeah, I like the idea, and it kind of started with Matt Smith. I think that was Moffat's highest point, was the Matt Smith arcs. Yeah. It started like, it was still kind of working on the Davies sort of, like, what even is a family? And because, like, Amy and Rory, like, they constantly, Rory specifically wants to settle down, Amy wants to travel, but then, you know, the idea of constant flux is unhealthy. And that's kind of what they're explaining. And then near the end, they have this arc where they're pushed away from the Doctor, irrevocably so, and they're happier for it in the end. Like, they write about it, and it actually, like, they had a really good life. And I kind of like that. And then the Doctor's sort of wandering for a while, and then it just kind of goes downhill because he bails on, like, a thesis.
Yeah. And
he's just like, oh, this is all interesting to everyone. And once he did that, I think that's when the Moffatisms really hit stride. Like, Clara's first season is pretty okay. I like the Impossible Girl stuff, but once she's not that, it doesn't matter. And he just kind of ran out of juice.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
I think you're totally right. I feel like a part of the problem was, too, with Moffat, and again, I don't mean this to be a post-mortem on Moffat's showrunner. We've talked about him plenty on this show.
I think, well, by the way, he did more from Doctor Who than anyone, I think.
Yeah.
And Matt Smith, of course.
He brought in a lot of viewers on his run, but I think it got to a point where he kept being like, okay, this is my last series. No, this is my last series. Right. But the BBC kept being like, come back. So he never wanted to fully commit to a new, like you said, thesis statement. He never wanted to fully commit to a new theme entirely.
There's definitely loose versions of that.
Yeah.
But... Like, is the Doctor a good person? Is a good thesis.
Yeah.
But he starts exploring that, and then it kind of like, nah, he's good.
Yeah.
And so by the end of, like, the speech at the end... You say you like it at the end of Capaldi's run, and I like it too. But again, the children thing makes no sense because there was no point in which, except for that last couple episodes, where it was ever a theme. You know what I mean? It sounded much more like a Moffat writing for himself than...
Yeah, and in Listen, there was a moment where he talks to the kid, and that's good. And Capaldi's good with kids. I've seen him do interviews. But again, it's a case of Moffat letting the real world dive into Doctor Who
a
little too much. And it's like, you can't let it affect the show that much, because then you get scenes where the Doctor's writhing around in the ground talking about how children can understand his name, and it just comes off as, like,
weird.
Pandery, almost, too?
Yeah, it didn't have teeth. And I think if this last season was, he's kind of running from the... Matt Smith goes through a lot of shit in his run. Like, I mean, he goes through some genuinely traumatic shit. Capaldi loses Clara and literally suffers eons for her, which is... I thought that was easily Capaldi's highest moment as the Doctor. I thought that, the punching the diamond wall for a billion years or whatever. Great stuff. And then he just sort of chases happiness. Like, you can write a good thing there, but, like, in those seasons... Have him constantly interacting with kids and have people mention it and be like, what's going on here? You're usually pretty surly.
Sure.
And he's just like, just kids are great. And like, they're very innocent and they don't have problems. And have him kind of expound on that. And then by the time he's dead during that speech, kind of put the key in the door, unlock it, open that up, and let the flood of information that we're not getting about what he's thinking come out. But that wasn't the case. It just wasn't what we got.
I guess. I also just think it's a case of taking the subtext and making it text to the point of cringe.
Yeah.
Which is, like, you and I, for instance, on this show and an after show for Doctor Who can talk about the themes of Doctor Who and, like, innocence of childhood or, like, the creativity of childhood or the imagination of childhood.
Or the annoyance of being around children.
Whatever. But these are all subtexts to the main story, and once you have a main character talking about that, it'd be like if... It's almost like if Mickey Mouse came out and was like, kids, let's talk about,
It's a PSA.
Like, you can't have the character talking about themselves to that extent. Right, it just comes off as, like, bad.
It's legit talking to the audience about, like, kids like the show.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Which is why I'm really excited about Jodie Whittaker.
Like, it's this, for the same reason, this is... In comedy, this sort of thing can work to great effect. The Badman sketches are effectively the same thing. It's being...
The Batman stuff.
It's having a character describe themselves so well and being so self-aware of their own cultural impact and sort of, like, pop culture image that it comes off as comical.
That's why Rick from Rick and Morty is funny.
Sure.
Because he's very aware and, like constantly is making fun of the pretentiousness of the audience.
He's cynical about his own existence and the existence of the show itself.
Right, and that's why it works. Because he's like, why are we even here? Like,
you can't have a character be too sappy about their own existence within their universe, otherwise it comes off as cringy and Doctor Who.
We finally uncovered why we didn't like the end of that speech, and I like that we went through this.
I agree. I think we've really tapped into what it is.
Yeah, it's just
Doctor Who writhing and talking about children loving him is like Batman screaming, "Justice!"
Without the comedic effect because it's supposed to be sincere.
It's too on the nose.
Yeah.
It's like, we get it. Don't do that.
And that's why Matt Smith's was good.
Yeah.
Because he's basically just having hallucinations of people he loves and misses. Sure. And that's important. And by the way, I thought I didn't hate Clara returning for that little moment. I am one to be like, as soon as I see Clara, I go, fuck! But no, that one I was fine with.
The green screen was terrible.
It was.
The lighting,
she clearly did a pickup shot somewhere.
The lighting was matched horribly.
In a hallway somewhere.
But it was that quick, so I was like, fine.
Yeah. No.
So anyway, I guess that's it.
This ended up not being about Alan Cumming. We've been doing that a lot this week.
Well, yeah.
Well, okay. That's kind of our forte, isn't it? Just a tangent. Tangent the show.
That's a better title than...
We should just call... Our podcast will be called The Tangent. It's a good title.
Yeah.
The Tangent with Hugo and Jay.
That is pretty good.
Fuck, man. That's actually probably going to be it now.
Okay.
Yep, we nailed it.
Until next time, I'm Hugo.
Podcast. Jake. I'm no longer a gay guy with good hair. I'm just a straight guy with mediocre hair. Sometimes it quaffs up pretty nice, though. Need a haircut. You can get this. I don't like people touching my head. I don't like it. It's too... I don't know you. Don't fucking... I know I'm paying for the service. Still don't like it. I put it off. I put it off until I have to. You like haircuts? He likes haircuts. Weirdo.